It's been long planned, these annual drills between the Philippines and the US, but Australia is part of it too. Just over 100 Australian military personnel, both conventional and special forces, are taking part in the Balitakan annual exercises. The significance this year is that these drills are the biggest joint Philippines-US drills ever, basically. 17,600 troops in total taking part. The majority of those are American forces, but about 5,000 or 6,000 Philippines troops as well. Australia's contingent, much smaller, just over 100. But the interesting thing is, as part of these exercises that are going for about 2.5 weeks, the American and Filipino troops will do a practice of sinking hostile ships at sea using a mock ship. So this is missile target practice on the ocean. Apparently the Australians won't be part of that. They will be part of separate live fire exercises taking place on land. But this is a pretty large-scale drill, and it comes just weeks after Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. allowed American troops to have expanded access to bases in the Philippines. So for that reason, you can see that China is watching these drills pretty warily. Beijing has actually said that it urges the parties involved not to let these exercises interfere or influence territorial disputes that China has with the Philippines in the South China Sea. Bev, you can see the motivation for the Philippines. They want more American support to help bolster their claims and their ability to defend their claims in the South China Sea. Whereas for the Americans, much of this is about securing cooperation from the Philippines on bases that are relatively near Taiwan.
Yeah, which is, I guess, the central player in all of this. And China has expressed its dissatisfaction with the president visiting the US and, you know, having various meetings with quite a show of force over the last couple of days. Have they now packed up and moved on, or is that intimidation of Taiwan going to continue?
They haven't packed up. These 3-day drills were supposed to be over by Monday night, but Taiwan's military today saying that 8 Chinese naval ships were still making their presence felt on multiple, on various sides of the island. Some of these confrontations, well, not really confrontations, but standoffs between Taiwanese naval ships and Chinese naval ships are happening really quite close to Taiwan's coastline. So you've got your 12 nautical mile territorial waters, then you've got another 12 nautical miles known as the contiguous zone. China, traditionally, Chinese ships have never entered that contiguous zone, but according to the reports we're seeing, these naval ships are staring off Taiwanese naval ships just on the periphery of that 24 nautical mile contiguous zone. And we've seen a vision released by local media where the Taiwanese crews urge, demand that the Chinese ships leave the area because they're harming peace and stability. And the reply from various Chinese PLA naval ships is that the contiguous 24 nautical mile zone doesn't exist. Taiwan is an inseparable part of China, and it is Taiwan independence forces who are harming peace and stability in the region.
Yeah, and that narrative is probably not going to change anytime soon. It's interesting, as Australia's participating in these military exercises, Canberra has suspended our WTO appeal against China. Is this something of an olive branch?
So I suspect what has happened is that the two sides have struck some sort of deal, but as part of the deal, Australia first has to drop its WTO action on barley, and then China publicly says it will spend the next 3 or 4 months reviewing its tariffs on Australian barley. And that appears to be, as they like to say, a face-saving way for China to drop these tariffs on barley without, at the same time as Australia dropping its WTO case, doing away with them. So it kind of makes it look like the Australians have made a concession first, which is all part of Beijing's playbook, basically, to never look like it's making a concession. Penny Wong and Don Farrell, the two Foreign Minister and Trade Minister today, did say that Australia reserves the right to resume that WTO action if in 3, maybe 4 months' time, China has not removed those tariffs. We're seeing reports too that the WTO has given a report or a preliminary report to both Australia and China, and that report is favourable to Australia. It hollows out the idea that barley was being dumped. And according to reports in The Australian, at least based on sources in Canberra, supposedly China does not want that WTO report to be made public. And so this is part of why now Beijing is likely preparing to dump those tariffs.
Yeah, really interesting movements. Good to have you on, Bill. Thanks so much.
Thank you.